In 1930, the Australians came to England with a very young team, hoping to win back the Ashes that England had taken from them in 1926. Don Bradman and Archie Jackson, Bradman on the left here, were the star turns. Bradman had the world record of 452, and Jackson had made 164 in his Ashes debut a year or so earlier. Tim Wall on the left, the only really fast bowler in the side, and Alex Herwood, the shy Queenslander. Charlie Walker, the second wicket-keeper killed in the war, and with the pipe, Bill Ponsford, maker of 2 quadruple centuries. Alan Fairfax with Percy Hornibrook in the hat, Queensland spinner. Alan Kippax with his great pal Vic Richardson, grandfather of the Chappells. Young Stan McCabe with Tedder Beckett. Clary Grimmett in the Homburg, filmmaker and wizard spin bowler with his captain Bill Woodfull. The treasurer Tom Howard with Bill Kelly, the tour manager. Ian Peebles, the leg spinner from Scotland who played for England, and the England captain, jolly Percy Chapman, and in the shadows Duleep Singh, the brilliant Indian batsman, nephew of Ranjit Singh. Wally Hammond, England's master batsman, and Maurice Tate, the jovial Sussex bowler, probably England's finest bowler in 1930. Herbert Sutcliffe, Jack Hobbs's partner from Yorkshire, an immortal and a genial man. Dodge Weissel, who died only a few months after these pictures were taken. George Duckworth, the wicket-keeper, Harold Larwood in the middle, and Maurice Leyland. Legendary names. And Jack Hobbs, the finest name of all, who towered above English cricket for 30 years, with Patsy Hendren on the right, the Middlesex batsman, and Bob Wyatt, who took over as England captain in 1930 for the Oval Test match. The first Test at Trent Bridge was won by England. No film of that, unhappily, but here we are at Lord's for the 1930 Test, England batting first and making 425 with Duleep Singh 173 on Ashes' debut. And Bert Oldfield, the Australian wicket-keeper, greets a friend at the back of the pavilion at Lord's, while over the old grandstand hovers the R101 airship. England followed Percy Chapman into the field, Gubby Allen and the happy chappies, Patsy Hendren and Maurice Tate, and Walter Robbins, the last man to take the field. Woodfull and Ponsford to open the innings. And Maurice Tate is bowling from the pavilion end. Short run, but a fairly fast delivery. And at lunch, they're all happy to go in, and the crowd now will stretch their legs and in the time-honoured fashion walk all over the sacred turf. You can see the old mound stand in the distance, and into the pavilion go some thirsty cricketers. And the old tavern stand. And the curiosity and the need to socialise and stretch the legs at the old Lord's ground. Impeccably dressed spectators from 1930, savouring the moment they hope when England will take a grip of this series. But there was a young man called Don Bradman who was going to make sure that they didn't. He made 254 in this Test. Alas, we have no footage of that, but this is precious film of King George V meeting both teams during the luncheon interval. The men in civvies are Charlie Walker, and the others not playing were Archie Jackson in the suit and Alex Herwood. Don Bradman is second from the right. Now, after this handshaking episode, the Australians lost the important wicket of Bill Ponsford, and it was always spoken of as the monarch's wicket. It was a great bond of empire, this ceremony. The Australians, when they toured England, talked about going home. They leave the field now. There's Vic Richardson in front, Bertie Oldfield to the left, Charlie Walker, tall figure of Percy Hornibrook, Don Bradman on the right, Stan McCabe in front of him, Archie Jackson's smiling face. Jack White of Somerset bowling his very accurate slow left-armers from the nursery end, and it's conceivable that that is Don Bradman batting in perhaps his greatest test match. Wally Hammond from the pavilion end, bowling a snappy, fast medium. But Australia had made 700 odd in reply to England's 400 and were well on the way to victory to level the series at 1-1. And there's the winning run. McCabe scoring a 4 off Wally Hammond. And the crowd now wanting yet another touch of their heroes. And the man being carried shoulder high from the field is Bill Woodfull, the Australian skipper, presumably by compatriots. Inexplicably, there is no film of the third test match at Headingley, but we move on to Old Trafford for the fourth, and there are the players giving some idea of just how soggy the ground was. Rain cost them most of the third day and all of the fourth. So consequently it was a drawn test, leaving it still 1-1. The significant thing being perhaps that Duleep Singhji caught Bradman at slip off Peebles for only 14, a very rare failure for young Don on this magnificent first tour of England of his. A very bleak scene at Old Trafford. Better luck at the Oval, where the sun is shining for the deciding test match of the 1930 series, England and Australia pegged at 1-1. And there are the spectators getting the feel of the place, treading the sacred turf, which, like the boundaries, is blessedly free of advertisements. The umpires, Joe Hardstaff Sr., the small man, and Bill Parry, who had a wooden leg. And Bill Woodfull leads out the Australians, hoping that a few days hence he'll be able to celebrate his birthday with the recapture of the Ashes. Now in this innings, England got a pretty good total on the board of 405, Hobbs and Sutcliffe coming out for the last time together for England, this famous pair. Jack Hobbs, 47 years of age, called it a day after this. Clarry Grimmett bowling as usual in a cap, and Herbert Sutcliffe having a swing at him. Clarry Grimmett's 29 wickets in this series are considered to have been as much a factor in Australia's success as Don Bradman's 974 runs. The fact is that the young Australians were really beginning to make an impression. Here we have Grimmett bowling one of his 66 overs in this innings, and Duleep Singhji, who made 50 in even time, is showing that his 173 at Lords was no fluke. Tim Wall, the fast bowler, to Herbert Sutcliffe, batting as usual without a cap. Toiling away, Grimmett thinking 4, 5, 6 overs ahead. One of the cleverest spinners of all time. Tireless too. He had to employ a lot of his teammates and friends to do the filming of these privately shot 16mm films. He had to entrust it to somebody with a good eye, and he's not done a bad job with these sequences. No telephoto lens at that stage. Nagging away. Leg break, top spinner, wrong 'un, flipper. Patiently, the England side worked its way to 405, and now the Australian response is Bill Woodfull and Bill Ponsford, the established and solid opening pair for Australia. Maurice Tate trundling away from this end with Duckworth up at the stumps. Short run, but he obtained a lot of pace off the pitch and he moved it both ways. Tireless bowler, happy chappy, dumped during the Bodyline tour which followed this series. Wally Hammond at slip, said to be the greatest slip catcher of the between wars period. And Harold Larwood, bowling from the Vauxhall end. Larwood pre-Bodyline, but already perhaps the world's leading fast bowler, complaining forever about the LBW law, which didn't do much for pace bowlers in those 1930s, against people like Woodfull, who's playing him now, and Ponsford, patting him away. Ian Peebles bowling his leg spin, born in Scotland, and bowling in this match to Archie Jackson, who was also born in Scotland, but who was to die only 2.5 years after these films were shot. Don Bradman turns Peebles to square leg and Archie Jackson running with him. This pair, this young pair who came to England as the most promising and attractive of the Australian young brigade, put on 243 in this innings, Wally Hammond having a go at the Vauxhall end to Jackson. 243, which established another mammoth innings for Australia. Jackson there turning to long leg. He made 73, but Bradman is on his way to another big one. 232. And there's his 100. A flick down to third man off Larwood. Archie Jackson applauds. 4th 100 for Bradman in this series, and not long after, he'd reached his double century, and that was the end for Archie Jackson at that point, out for 73. A heroic innings, some of it played on a damp pitch. And it put Australia into the box seat. It was also a time when the England wicketkeeper thought that Don Bradman flinched a little at the short stuff, and Bodyline was born. Bradman troops off 974 runs in this series, a record that stands 70 years and more later. Bob Wyatt, England captain, bowling to Fairfax with Bert Oldfield as the partner. And Australia now in an invincible position. Rain came later on, held up the game, but eventually they got back on. And England didn't offer much opposition in their second innings, and Woodfull therefore took the Ashes. Australia were jubilant, and they had a king-size hero in Don Bradman. Shot from the Australian dressing room, and now from the Vauxhall end. Now, during the match, the players were frustrated by the rain. They met the Prince of Wales during the interval, which was a bonus. But being a timeless test, they knew that there would be a result, and it went Australia's way. Certainly the spectators are geared up against any turn in the weather. To compare them with today's outfits seen at the cricket is quite a revelation. So, on Bill Woodfull's birthday, the Ashes go to Australia, and England have to think of a way of conquering Don Bradman. The crowd want to touch him, they want to see him, they want to be near him. Unpretentious man, but he was taking on a godlike image.